Hey everybody, I am Josh and he is
Christopher.
And together we combine to make amazing fantasy football. We do the little say infusion dance and we combine to make amazing fantasy football.
I forgot all that.
How you doing today, Chris?
Sorry, it'd be like this. Yeah, anyway, I'm doing great. A little rough morning. We're on a...
It was a rough morning.
Yeah, I guess we're on a... Feels weird being on a Thursday, but whatever. It's a good evening. I'm really excited to talk about rankings. July is the time for rankings. It's a little early, but that's when you start kind of getting your 1.0 version and you start parsing through them and start moving stuff around as training camp starts up and whatnot, mid-July. So I'm really excited about tonight, really excited about July, and let's go.
Alrighty. Today we are here to talk about some rankings. Chris and I have both done some rankings, and we're going to kind of duke it out amongst our ranks. We're kind of similar on a lot of stuff, and we'll go through our rankings. We can post them somewhere. We'll find a place to post them. People can look at them, and we will change them at some point. A lot of these are just, some of mine are some of my rookies are pretty low right now, just to kind of give a heads up to people, just because there hasn't been a lot of news coming out of teams lately. So until I start hearing some preseason hype or what's the opposite of hype?
Negative reports.
Hype. Negative reports. That man, there needs to be an anti-hype thing.
Maybe that's it.
Anyways, yes. We haven't done a show. Oh yeah, and by the way, we're back after our 1 month hiatus.
That's a good point. I guess we were still so busy. It kind of didn't seem like a break. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, that month went by uber quick, and we never did. So why don't you talk about Julio for a second?
Yeah, I don't have the trade parameters pulled up, but that's fine. Let's just talk about fantasy implications. Obviously, news is a little late. I'm sure you guys know Julio Jones was traded to the Titans. He's going to pair up with AJ Brown and Tannehill and Henry. And I, for one, on the Tennessee side of things, am very excited about that offense. I was already very excited about that offense. I don't think this. I think any hit that AJ Brown takes from volume, because of Julio showing up, will probably be made up with efficiency. I mean, he's a special player. I mean, a lot of people have him as Dynasty 1-0, the number one receiver in Dynasty. I know we're talking redraft,
Who's
but I just
that?
wanted to mention AJ Brown.
Oh,
I disagree with
that.
We won't get to him today because we'll do receiver some other time. Yeah, I don't have him at my 101 or 102 or anything crazy like that in redraft. But so age has something to do with it. So on the Atlanta side of things, and we'll get to this today, obviously, we're looking at a target, pretty darn big target vacancy in Atlanta. Pitts was drafted. They haven't really made many other moves. I think there was one other 6th round or undrafted rookie, Frank something Darby. That's pretty insignificant. Obviously, there's Calvin Ridley. I think I read somewhere a lot of 2 tight end sets with, is it Hurst is there also? And so we'll get into Pitts probably maybe later, but that's the news.
That's pretty much it.
Yep.
That's why we chose to take June off, and we might be doing that moving forward too, just because there just isn't a lot that comes out in as far as news from the NFL and everything. They're doing less training camps and all of that nowadays with the players, so it's just there just isn't a lot of news. So we took June off. We did some behind the scenes work. I did a couple of videos on DeAndre Swift and Tua. What's that?
Yeah, look at our new overlay.
Yep, and Chris did a new overlay, so we look a little bit different, and I think it's for the better. Yeah,
I hope so. Yeah. I mean,
looks good.
Tinkering here and there, but
yeah, you can see my comics back there now, and they were on the wall behind me before. They're still on the wall behind me, but it's much further away, and yada yada. So, blah blah blah, yada yada. Let's get into it, Chris.
Let's do this.
How about that?
Let's duke it out.
All right. So, Chris, we went through and we kind of picked out 3 players from each other's quarterbacks and tight end rankings, and some discrepancies we had. And so, who's your first guy that you found that you didn't like in my rankings? My rankings that have poured a lot of blood and sweat into this digital file that I sent to you.
I'm going to take your blood, sweat, and tears and just miss. No, I'm just kidding. Let's start with for lack of a better term, the headliner, the one we're kind of far apart on. You addressed some of it in the beginning of the show where you said your rookies are still a little low. You've got some time to adjust them, although you usually take the stance that, you're going to kind of, you're not going to raise them too much. Let's put it that way. So I've been a Kyle Pitts guy from, I guess, quote unquote day one.
Oh, we're going to start with Pitts. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess quarterback would have been, anyway. Yeah, I did push back a little bit.
I have him at 16, and you have him at 5. Like, this is where we over. This is one of the players we overlapped on.
Versus tight end 5, to be clear.
Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of let you do your Kyle's pitch spiel, and then I'll just kind of jump in whenever I feel like it's necessary. But go ahead and say your thing.
Absolutely. Now, I did push back a little in Dynasty as it got down to crunch time in May for rookie drafts. Just because it's such a big investment, but obviously his ranking is elevated in Dynasty for obvious reasons. Age, he's going to play, hopefully play a nice 10-year career, etc. But we're talking more redraft today. So let's see here. Similar to Kelsey, me and you have kind of taken this. Well, we're not the only fantasy analysts, but we've kind of taken this. Just take the tight end designation off of Kelsey. Consider him a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 2, whatever you want to call him. Right? Obviously, Pitts is not going to be the wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 4, but I feel the exact same about his position designation in fantasy terms. You can more or less just take it off. With Julio gone, he's going to lie all over the place. I see him playing slot. I see him playing out wide. I obviously also played tight end, but so that's kind of where I'm at there. Let's jump into some tight end college numbers and first year numbers, first year NFL numbers, except that's going to be second for Kelsey. He actually didn't play barely at all his first year due to knee surgery, I believe it was. For some of the greatest rookie tight ends ever, and we'll get an idea of what to expect year one from Mr. Pitts. Kelsey was 23 or 24 when drafted. Pitts is 20. Yeah, I'm sure that leads a little bit more towards the dynasty side of things, but I wanted to mention that. Now, we can look from a redraft perspective. Augie is less ready because of the age, but I think when you look at his college production and the fact that Julio's out of town, that more or less nullifies if you're worried about him, not being NFL ready because he's 20. He still played, 3 years, I think it was? Let's see here. Kelsey's first year, he had 67 catches. Don't you think Pitts is probably capable of that? If not,
maybe
closer to 100. It took Jeremy Shockey 2 years to equal one of Pitt's collegiate seasons. So 40 catches, 519 yards, and 7 touchdowns for Shockey's last year. Not bad. I got another hurricane for you. The old tight end U, as it were. Kellen Winslow Jr., in my opinion, he reminds me more of Pitts in their style and their collegiate production when you look at that. His last year in college, 60 catches, 605 yards, 1 touchdown, but he did have 8 the year before. Kelsey, 45 catches, 722 yards, a nice 16-yard average, and 8 touchdowns. Those are the types of numbers Pitts was putting up in college. Pitts was 43 catches, 770 yards, 17.9. 12 touchdowns. Of course, he's 6'6", 250, so that's nice to have. Where are we on NFL numbers? Winslow Jr. didn't play much his first couple of years, actually, so 06 is what I went off of. It definitely was injuries. I remember him being a bit of a knucklehead, but I don't think it was that early that he was. Maybe you could correct me if I'm wrong there, but 89 catches, 875 yards, 9.8 average. Don't have the touchdowns. It was real low. I think it was like 3. And his dad, Kellen Winslow Sr., also didn't play much in his first year. So 1980, 89 catches, 1,290 yards, 14.5 per, and 9 touchdowns at 23 years old. Ditka's the only rookie tight end.
I'm sorry. Are you quoting college stats?
I did college first. Now I'm doing NFL. I thought I said that. These last two Winslows were NFL stats. Ditka's the only tight end ever surpassed 1,000 yards in his rookie year. I'm pretty sure that's going to change after Pitts finishes his rookie year. He was Ditka was 56 catches, 1076 yards, 19.2 average, and 12 touchdowns. And what do you know? Ditka also played wide receiver in college at Pitt. They only played 10 games back then. So what I look at is this correlating production from collegiate tight end production over to the NFL, in particular their first year. And when you take the vacated targets from Julio, I mean, I don't see how you can't have a tight end 1 season on your hands here with Kyle Pitts.
Okay. So here's my thing. Okay, so I'm looking at Evan Ingram right here. He is the best modern day, like very recent tight end, rookie tight end to have. Let me rephrase that. He is the most recent rookie tight end to have some real meaningful stats. Like he's the sixth best rookie tight end ever.
There you go.
722 yards, 64 catches, and 6 touchdowns. What does that get you? Roughly, he would have been like the tight end 4 or 5 last season in a down year for tight end. Okay, that's great. I'm never going to draft. You have Pitts as your 5th tight end off the board.
Right
Okay.
behind Hawkinson.
So now you're going to, what's that?
I said right behind Hawkinson, I believe. Yep.
Right. So now, and that means that you have him at overall 59th.
Thank you.
So that's what, 5th round, 6th round. So you're spending a 6th round pick, a later 6th round, but still.
Mm-hmm.
You're spending a 6th round pick on your tight end that's a rookie that he could do this, which I get. So what happens when Pitts only sees 50% of the snaps for week 1? Are you scared?
I don't think that's happening.
I guess they could. If it does, are you scared? Are you going to stick with him for week 2?
Oh yeah, absolutely, I am.
And what happens in week 2 when he sees about 59% of the snaps? Are you scared then? Are you still sticking with him into week 3?
I mean, depends on the other numbers, right? I mean, he could have scored a touchdown and suddenly my stat sheet looks a little different. Yes, is that concerning moving forward in terms of me and you are always ones to look at things like targets and, we're anticipating production. We're not necessarily...
Hey, he's only getting 5 targets each game.
That'd be a little worrisome.
Now you've spent a 6th round pick where you easily could have gotten, and this is according to your rankings. You could have had something in the likes of Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins, or Josh Allen, which it's still very early for a quarterback, but still, that's not bad. I'd rather have much.
Yeah.
I would much rather take a shot on Josh Allen, who I'm pretty sure is going to have some more guaranteed production than Pitts, who's a rookie and this is my personal philosophy, man. It really is. But rookies it's just a sort of, what have you done for me lately? Absolutely nothing. So it's just a lot of conjecture that
more. I couldn't disagree more. Rookies are breaking out all over the place at multiple positions, even quarterback, for God's sake.
But you're getting zero value out of Pitts, though.
No, you're getting positional advantage if he ends up being the tight end 1, which is a possibility.
If the tight end 1, the best tight end as a rookie.
I'm not predicting that, but I'm ranked at 5. It's absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. It's possible he has the greatest tight end season of all time. I think it's more important to mention that I don't have him ranked as such. I don't have him ranked over Kelsey or in the first round or anything like that. I just think generally when you talk about rookies, the league has changed over the past... about 7 years, it feels like.
I get that, but tight end is also like the second hardest position to get a hold of as a rookie.
Mm-hmm.
Like cornerback being probably.
That's why I gave you all these rookie tight end
cornerback being probably the.
That's why I gave you all these rookie tight end.
I'm not going to convince you because you're just like firmly entrenched in Pitts, and that's cool. I have him as 16. That's
because I brought him up, right?
You're not going to though. That's the thing. You're not like, and so I mean maybe I should raise him up a little bit. But when I'm looking at my rankings and I'm just like, okay, well, I would rather have Anthony Ferkser, Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram, Gronk, Dallas Goedert, Cole Kmet, Robert Tonyan, Blake Jarwin, and so on and so on and so on, climbing up the list over Pitts.
All those guys finished behind Pitts. What do you do?
What's that?
I said, if all these guys finish behind Pitts, in a manner of speaking, you lost. And also, I think two important things.
Not really, because I've used that 6th round pick that you're trying to take him at, and you might have to go even higher because someone in your league might be foolish enough to try and reach for him. So you're just like, if you're sitting there drafting with someone else who
last thing that I was going to say, yeah. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
If you know that someone else in your league loves Pitts as much as you do, or if not more, and they're just being, they're not the savviest drafter, they might spend you might have to spend like a 5th round pick on him to get him. And it's just like, I feel like you're drafting him at his absolute peak value, which I don't like to do. I like to try and get value out of players, especially in the 6th round. I'm looking for guys that I'm getting value. I think you're you're
I think
taking
the two
his
most
absolute peak.
the two things I would I guess agree with you on, the two things I would put on your side of the argument that are in the back of my mind in terms of as we go through July, August, etc., and my ranking on Pitts is that number one, it depends on my roster to that point, how I've been drafting. Did I go RB, et cetera, et cetera? That matters a ton.
Say you have three running backs and two wide receivers.
Let me finish though.
You've done also running back, wide receiver already, and you're sitting there in the 6th round, and you're like, okay, so you have,
two of each,
let's say T. Higgins versus what's that?
Do I have two running backs and two receivers? I missed you there.
Three running backs and two wide receivers. That's how you use your first 5 picks. Doesn't matter what order. You have 3 RBs. You have 2 wide receivers. Mm-hmm. What are you doing? You have T. Higgins or Kyle Pitts sitting there. What are you doing?
Probably going Pitts. That's my rankings say.
Okay, then you need to change your rankings.
Oh, what? I'm sorry. I thought you said... Oh, I see. Yeah, that's fair. July 1, I have T. Higgins 2 spots ahead.
Yeah.
Or, to your point, work them down. Oh, that was my second point. Last point, should I say, is that when I did my rankings, I'll admit at a certain point, not necessarily right here, but like you said with tight ends, we usually wait. Like if we don't get Kelsey, we're like, oh, punt. That's not always what we do, but these Hawkinsons and these Pitts and these top 5, I guess we'll put it, or should I say, top 5 besides Kelsey. It's kind of a conundrum right now for me in July. However, the reasons I listed, I think he's going to be a phenomenal player year 1, and I think positional skills.
Where would you have ranked Pitts if Julio was still there?
Lower. Off the top of my head.
Just quickly.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull him back up. Real quick. I would probably, so we're at the end of the 6th, were we? I mean,
sure.
7th or 8th. I'd probably go behind.
In tight end rankings, then.
Yeah, I like Tanyan quite a bit. I think I've got a reasonable ranking on him, though, at tight end 6. So I'd probably go below Tanyan. I'm not in love with Andrews. Yeah. I'm still taking Pitts over Jarwin. Okay, yeah, so I'd move him under Tanyan at tight end 7. I'm sorry, tight end 6. Swap him. At least one.
Speaking of Robert Tonyan, that's our next guy that we're going to talk about, because you have him way too high, dude. Way too high. Mm-hmm. He more or less, in his 2020 season, he more or less did what he did in his first 2 years with Green Bay, and he played in 16 games in his rookie year, and he played in 11 in his sophomore year, and then last season he played in 16 games again. He started in 8 of them. He only had 59 targets. What would you say his snap percentage was? I'm sure you didn't look it up, so I'm going to just have you guess.
Snap percentage?
Yeah.
He started
how much was he on the field?
77%.
At best, it was 73% in one game. At worst, it was 50%. And his average was roughly about 64% of the time he was on the field. 64%. That's not very good, dude. Not very good at all.
I think they like to run some 3 receiver sets, but I also think last year he showed what he can do, and I think they're going to run less of those. And I don't think they have a 3rd receiver any consequence, really. I say any consequence.
They have the same receiving core. They have the same receiving core plus
from last year.
Devin Funchess, if you even consider him a threat. As you know what I'm saying?
For sure. No.
As another wide receiver option. I know that they don't like Equanimeous St. Brown all that much, but Marquise Valdez-Scantling, if he can actually manage to catch those deep balls every once in a while, I mean, and to put it in perspective, Hawkinson, who you have just like a spot above him or a couple spots above him, on the field for 73% of the snaps versus Tunyan's 64%. 64% is not good. That is
his
not...
highest game was 73, and he averaged 64 for the season, is what you're saying.
Yes.
It'll go up easily.
What?
It'll go up. His touchdowns will go down. His snaps will go up. He has an 88%.
I don't think you can really say that, though. I really don't. I mean,
I don't know. Very efficient. He's got one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time throwing the ball.
That's great, but Aaron Rodgers has never had continuity with his tight ends from year to year. What was that one guy? I'm sorry, I didn't look all these guys up. But I mean, like there was one year there was Jermichael Finley. Finley was great. He was like the tight end 5 that year, and then the next season non-existent. And then there was another guy, and then there was Jimmy Graham, and it was just like all these guys that like from year to year he doesn't carry continuity with them. And I understand that like I'm not. Well,
I mean, Jimmy Graham.
I'm not using that as like a
yeah.
What's that?
Jimmy Graham left, I think, for Chicago after that season. Double-digit touchdowns, I think, in Green Bay.
Nope.
He did. He just had a bad second year in Green Bay.
Yep.
Okay.
And so, I'm just like, I think you're way too high. Tight end 6? No.
I think.
I mean, I have him at 9.
It's all conjecture. I think it's just coincidence. That's exactly what it is. He has no problem throwing to a tight end as he showed last year, and he showed other years. Is it like, is he like Rivers would probably be one of the greatest quarterback to tight end dudes ever? I mean, he's not necessarily that.
So he had like 2 good years with Jimmy Graham, and then his tight ends after that were not very good.
I said he's not, but I said he's shown us he can throw the tight end. I think he wants better players. I think he's upset that he didn't get a receiver in the draft. Now that would definitely change this ranking, or what have you. By the way, it's important to mention this is obviously completely out the window if things change with Rodgers. I feel that the closer we get to training camp, July, August, he's staying put.
The more Rodgers is still on the team, the more likely it is. I think it is that he's going to play. They're not going to trade. They're not going to trade one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time on July 1st.
Yeah. So I just want to be clear that that's baked into the ranking, obviously, at tight end 6.
There was, and if you look at my quarterback rankings too, like a quick side note as we're doing side notes is that I didn't rank Deshaun Watson because I fully do not expect him to play whatsoever this season. Just with, I mean, it's hard to ignore 22 sexual assault accusations.
Yeah, I saw that when I did my rankings.
The NFL does take its sweet time in handing down punishments to players and everything like that. And Deshaun Watson's case is kind of like it's stuck in court limbo until like the beginning of next year. So, I mean, until we get closer to the season and it looks like Deshaun Watson's actually going to play or not play, I'm going to keep him out of my ranks. Whereas Rodgers, I think he's going to play, so I'm going to keep him in my ranks. You know what I'm saying?
I don't have a problem with that right now.
I purposely left Watson out and left Rodgers in. I did not forget about Watson.
I saw it and I hesitated, but I was like, again, it's July 1. I'm like, I'm fine with him not being on my rankings.
And it's not like we erected a monument of our rankings that are like chiseled into stone, like it's a digital file that we can easily, change. I just think the tight end 6 is way too late. I would much rather have Andrews, Gesicki, Jarwin, than Robert Tonyan, just off the top of my head. And I would like to hear some good things about Fant and Goddard and get the Robert Tonyan. I'm sorry, I just like for a guy who is so touchdown dependent, I don't want him on my team. Touchdowns are really hard. They're really
literally
hard
every tight end in the league. Except for Kelsey and maybe the top 2 or 3, but
Waller,
every tight end
Hawkinson.
below. Yeah, Waller's not tight end. I'm sorry, Waller's not touchdown dependent. He had like one huge game last year and ended up with like
he had 9 last year. He was great.
Did he have 9?
He had 6 the year before, and he was tight end 4. So
that's what I mean. You don't worry about him having a 4, 5, 6 touchdowns.
I just worry about Robert Tonyan being a flash in the pan when he's just like if you more or less give him the same usage and you lower those touchdowns from 11 to like even 8. Now we're talking about the tight end like 11 on the season.
I could see a couple things. I could see myself raising on Fant. I've got him at the top of a tier right now. I'm also pretty high on Jarwin. I could see that coming down a little. So Fant up, Jarwin down. We talked about Pitts and Tonyan just now. And we talked about it not being set in stone. So I just can't take Tonyan or Pitts out of tight end 1 territory is where I'm at there. And we've got another one coming up here. We'll talk about.
What's your next guy? I'm pretty much done with Tonyan.
My turn.
Sure.
My next guy is Tyler Higbee at 18. Tight end 17. You got Evan Ingram at tight end 13. So you're obviously like him better. I'm kind of flip flopped there, and I cannot find.
Are you really? Okay.
Yeah, a little bit. Where do I have mine?
You have who at tight end 13?
No, I was talking about yours. You have Ingram at 13 and Higbee at 17. I have Higbee at 12 and Ingram at 17. So very similar.
Okay. So why do you have Higbee so high?
Stafford and the Rams offense. I'm very high on the Rams offense. We're both high on the Rams offense, to be fair. Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, there's a lot of vacated. I say a
So
lot of
other
vacated, a decent
than
amount of vacated targets from Mr. Gerald Everett.
yeah, but that was Jared Goff too, and
Yeah, so
Matt Stafford's he's a completely different quarterback. I mean, Stafford has shown that he'll use tight ends, but like
Hawkinson.
even Hawkinson wasn't like putting up super elite numbers with Stafford. They were good numbers, but they weren't elite. And I just like I feel like with those 2-3 wide receivers that they have in I almost said St. Louis, Los Angeles already, that I feel like Tyler Higbee's going to be a little bit of an afterthought. You know, I think that there might be some games that where he kind of does, you know, explode a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But he had that with Goff too. And remember at the like towards the beginning of last season, I think it was like week 3 because he had like a good like it was like a good week 2 and like a really great week 3 or like weeks 3 and 4. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna pull up which weeks they were.
That's fine.
But you know what I'm saying? We're like, oh man, I think this guy's leveling up in front of our eyes, and then he disappeared for more or less the rest of the season. So I fear that that's going to happen with Higbee this year too. Mm-hmm. It's just you're not going to get consistent production, and even like so inconsistent that it's just going to be so hard to guess which game it's going to be. That's why I have him that low. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. My pushback there would be actually one side that I would would be concerning a little is their depth chart is listed with 3 starting receivers. So lead to believe they like to run a lot of 3 receiver sets.
Who are those receivers? Do you know?
Van Jefferson is the third, so you obviously know who the top 2 are.
And that's the name I was struggling to come up with.
Yeah, Van Jefferson. Then I feel like maybe that is it. Oh, Deshaun Jackson. Thank you. Which will, hey, you know, he'll get hurt in the first snap. But it's worth mentioning. It's worth mentioning.
According to the ESPN depth chart for the Rams, it's Deshaun Jackson, not Van Jefferson.
Really? Okay.
And I don't. Yes, and ESPN's website, as far as like NFL depth charts, is pretty darn good and usually up to. This is also the same website though that has Jameis Winston as the
New Orleans starting quarterback.
The Saints starting quarterback, and I saw that and I was like, oh no. Oh no!
I use our lads, but I digress. Last couple things I want to say on kind of the Higbee Ingram thing. Catch rate last year for Ingram 57.8, 73.3 for Tyler Higbee. And again, Everett's gone, man.
Sorry, say that again. I muted you on accident.
Sorry. Tyler Higbee was a 73.3% catch rate last year. Evan Ingram was 57.8. Now, Danny Dimes, I get it. But he's still there, so that's
Ingram had some drops last year too.
Yeah,
and I did forget about that until just now.
Liked Ingram, like his whole, he's not Mr. The best tight end in the game, but we've always liked the value, and we did love him early on when he was good, when he was rookie and
I just and so like I'm gonna keep reiterating this is when I did my rankings, it was just a lot of like. Would I draft this guy over this guy over this guy? Like it was just like if thens and like all the way down, and eventually it got to this is where I wanted Evan Ingram, and I wanted him like slightly above Hunter Henry, and I almost want him above Gronk too, to be honest. See, you got me saying it now.
Hunter Henry. Okay.
You know, like, and there's some guys that I wanted to get higher, like, and just to kind of like go off topic a little bit, because this wasn't a guy on either one of our lists because we both have him really low. But I really wanted Irv Smith to get higher, but especially with Kyle Rudolph being gone.
I just don't trust that offense to give the tight end the ball very
much.
No,
and I actually looked into it. I was like, okay,
that's a good point.
And so to give people a heads up on, just to do a side note about Irv Smith, is that I looked at Kirk Cousins and what he did with Kyle Rudolph before Irv Smith came to town with Irv Smith, and it just wasn't a lot of production at the tight end position for Minnesota. So I was just like. I guess you're just gonna sit at tight end 20 right now, and even then, like there's some guys beneath him that maybe should actually go above him too. It's just I like Irv Smith, and I think that he could be a solid weapon for the Vikings. There isn't a lot of history of Kirk Cousins utilizing the tight end in Minnesota. So
I agree.
Yeah,
ironically, I kind of disagree with Green Bay for kind of the same thing, right? So, but no, it's a valid point for sure. That's why I don't like Irv very much. I like the player. I like the physicality. I like the blocking. but we're talking.
I like the
fancy
player.
airports, yeah.
I don't like the like you said, the offense and the opportunity that I don't think there isn't a lot of
Yeah,
opportunity
he's
there.
not the piece I want for that offense. I'd rather have Cousins,
Exactly.
as a bargain, as a late round bargain, as a draft
Right.
late quarterback, and of course the receivers.
Okay. So let's
What you got?
did I sufficiently explain my Evan Ingram and yeah, and maybe Evan Ingram's a little high because I forgot about the drops, but
I don't think you absolutely hate my Higbee rating, and I think we're just flopped on that area. And we just admitted that they're probably going to move, and particularly Ingram up for me a little, but I'll probably still have Higbee above him. But yeah, I think we're just flip flopped, and we're there. It's not like the kind of Pitts, because the Pitts argument kind of digs down into that rookie thing and the tight end thing, and that's more of a real divisive ranking for ourselves as opposed to Higbee. And yeah, so I'm good.
All right. I got one more left. And that would be Mr. Adam Trout Man.
Nice.
Adam Trout Man. He is a man and a trout.
Yeah. I'm a little high on him, I'd say.
At 13, I have him at 19.
Right
so
next to each other, folks. So
Yeah. So what say you, sir? What I mean, Troutman didn't exactly set the world on fire in his rookie season. I mean, he only started in 6 games. And I know Jared Cook isn't there anymore, which, I mean, that helps. And the Saints didn't exactly do anything to bolster their receiving core in the offseason, which was kind of surprising because it was pretty shallow anyways. So, I mean, I can kind of see, the 13, like he's just outside that tight end 1 sort of thing. So, like, maybe you're not drafting him as your starting tight end, but maybe you are. I mean,
sure.
I don't know, man. I have like. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised you didn't call out Cole Kmet because I have him at like tight end 10. And
in a manner of speaking, that's where I'm going to go. In a manner of speaking, that's where I'm going to go first. What I mean by that is there's a very important group here, including Higbee and Kmet and Troutman. But go ahead if you're.
So the other thing I have on Trout Man is that I'm going to keep calling him that, by the way. So if you combine Jared Cook and Adam Troutman's stats from last year, they add up to more or less being 9.7 points per game. That's not really all that great.
Yeah.
I mean, if you put it into context on a per game average, it's like, tight end 8 on a points per game average. Mm-hmm. But even then, like, are you happy getting 9.7 half PPR points per game? I'm not, especially when that's the average. So yeah, it could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less. Man, you hit that less, and that's a sad day right there.
Yeah. Why is this not giving me college stats? So I see I'll probably end up moving Fant out of this tier, move him up, probably above Jarwin, into the bottom of the next tier. You briefly touched on Goddard. We're really in this Higbee, Troutman, Kmet area at 12, 13, and 14. That is the bottom of that tier for me.
I believe you mean
I'm
Trout
pretty high
Man.
Right, Trout Man. I'm pretty darn high on Kmet too. So as I got to the tight end 12 area, no longer a tight end 1, which is what we're mainly concerned about. I wanted to leave myself some sleepers. Maybe they're not too well known to be sleepers, but some darts to throw, some guys that I like. Your Troutmans, your Kmets, your Higbees. Troutman was a huge producer in college. Granted, it was at a division, not division 1A. So you have to take that into account. His snap percentage, as you stated, he didn't play high snap percentages for the vast majority of the year, but it went up as the season went on. He got in 61%. I can't tell what week that is. Is that, it's 14, whatever. I can't see the top of the column. That's all. It's the last couple weeks. And the last 2 weeks of the season, 69%, 64%. Hey, this is coming from a guy that wasn't getting stats. This is coming from a guy playing with Jared Cook. Jared Cook's in, I almost said San Diego. Jared Cook is in LA now with the Chargers. So we've got more targets to go around. And Troutman is a heck of a blocker. I think he graded out as the highest rated run blocker by PFF at the tight end position last year. So he's going to be on the field. So in terms of snaps, it's not targets. That doesn't mean targets, to be fair. But now you're getting opportunity. Now maybe you're getting goal line targets because you're on the field almost all the time. So that snap percent is going to go much higher. He's just a dynamo in college, and my only pushback for my own ranking would probably be the quarterback situation, because I made that point about like Kamara and others, and I'm pretty darn low on Thomas too. But that's my Troutman love. But I'm not gonna like commit. They could swap Higbee. Those three could just all year. I say all year. Before regular season.
It's easy. It could happen.
So I kind of had them in the same. I kind of feel the same. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Those three.
All right. I'd rather have Cole Kmet every day of the week, as our ice cream bar bet says on the board over there.
We did make a bet on that, which is why he's
I have not forgotten about.
And if I do end up moving Kmet in my rankings, I will stay with my bet, of course. I understand that kind of means I don't feel the same way, but I don't want to be somebody who's pigeonholed into, you gotta love Troutman for the rest of your life or whatever. But no, I'm high on him. I think he's gonna have a great year.
Cool. All right, let's move on to some quarterbacks since we started with the tight ends. Who's the first quarterback you would like to call me out on?
Well, I think we're going to call each other out on this one. So kind of like Pitts, we can get that one out of the way. Is it Tannehill?
Mm-hmm. Do you have him at number 7?
Yeah.
And I have him at 11. That's only 4 spots, but still, man, it's But I mean, tight end. Quarterback number 7. Like, okay, so here's my thing. Mm-hmm. If he's your quarterback number 7, you're drafting him as your starting quarterback for week 1, right?
Yeah. You're hoping you don't have to don't have to stream. Now I will say I could probably wait to get him.
Do you know who Tannehill's first 3 games are?
I do not.
It is Arizona. That's not a very good matchup. The Seattle. That's a good one. And Indy. Not a very good matchup. So. Yeah.
Who was the second one? I heard Arizona and Indy. Who was the
Seattle?
one?
It's at Seattle. Home versus Arizona. At Seattle. Home versus Indy. 2 out of those 3 are not good matchups at all.
Fair. Yeah, Seattle wasn't very good last year. I will say Arizona was dead last versus the tight end the year before last. But I think the main reason for that, they drafted that linebacker, very athletic, Riddick.
The guy that just got in trouble with the law.
Riddick?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I think he has a lot to do with their tight end defense. We also realize that defense and offensive line are the 2 hardest things to kind of carry over in the real NFL. So, I don't think there's any guarantee Arizona's amazing against tight end, but they were last year.
We're not talking about tight ends. We're talking about quarterbacks.
Oh, sorry. Pass game. I'm still stuck on tight ends. My bad.
I could tell.
Arizona's a great, Arizona's a great pass rush. That's a good point. They've got what's his face coming off the edge. Used to be with New England.
AJ Watt and the other guy.
A lot of it has to do with Julio showing up. I think a lot of fantasy players believe he's got a good year or 2 left, like good year. I mean, not the wide receiver 1 or even necessarily.
I like Tannehill I like Tannehill better with Julio, and I know in years past I've said I don't like Ryan Tannehill. I know this is technically our year 1 season of the of AFFB, but. And I know last year I was just like, I don't think Tannehill is very good and blah, blah, blah. So now my reason has shifted from Tannehill's a decent quarterback. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I think a bit.
And having him be my quarterback 11, I think shows that. But
Agreed.
At the same time, my main concern about Tannehill is usage. With Derrick Henry there and Darrynton Evans and that other guy that is behind Derrick Henry, if Derrick Henry were to go down, they'll probably run a committee of those 2 other guys, and I think they're going to run the ball just as much as they did last year. Maybe not all with Derrick Henry, because Darrynton Evans was hurt at times last year, and so was the other guy. But this is my main concern about Tannehill, and which is why I have him at 11 versus the 7 that you do, is that usage. There's going to be games where it's just run the ball with Derrick Henry. And Tannehill's just not going to have a large body of work.
But we said the same things last year about Tannehill and A.J. Brown, and look what happened. A.J. Brown produces almost no matter what, it seems like.
That's great. We're not talking about A.J. Brown. We're talking about Ryan Tannehill.
I know, but he's the guy he throws the ball to. Like, the same stuff was said about A.J. Brown that was said about Tannehill. The volume is too low. And I think the moves that they've made this offseason show that not only will they maybe lighten the load on Henry a little, and maybe give some work to some other guys. But also, I think that they're not going to go pass happy by any means. They're still a run-oriented team. But I think that the run-pass ratio is going to go, they're going to pass more. When you bring in personnel like Julio, man, versus a Corey Davis, I mean, I like Corey Davis as a 2.
That doesn't mean that they're going to pass more.
I think not only
I've seen NFL teams do this. They'll load up their wide receiver core, blah blah, and they'll even come out with press conferences saying we're going to pass more this season. We're going to pass more, and then they don't.
I think the
I would use Lamar Jackson as exhibit A.
I think they want to pass more to be more balanced, to win playoff games and win a Super Bowl, and I think they've got an offense that can do it. And
there's one thing that I'm going to add to your argument because I don't think you're going to say it, and it's actually against me, but I'm going to say it anyways because it is a relevant argument point to make. I guess I should say is that the Titans their Titans cornerbacks last season were really really bad.
And defense was good,
yeah, and there were times, though, in games where even though they were down by 2 or 3 scores, they were still running the ball. But at the same time, if you have a Julio, which I think an aging Julio is still better than Corey Davis, and you have some continuity clear up a little bit, or some tight end, excuse me, I can't talk tonight. The tight end room has kind of been cleared up a little bit.
Sure.
By getting rid of Jonnu Smith and keeping Anthony Ferkser, and I love Ferkser this year.
Yeah, he's another one. I don't think I've got.
He's a nice value tight end that if I completely 15th round, shot in the dark, like Hail Mary, sort of tight end that could easily produce on it, maybe not a week to week basis, but he could be a good streamer. What?
Yeah, I didn't have him ranked yet. I completely agree. I've been keeping an eye on him. Yeah,
you have Ferkser on there, don't you?
Do I? I don't see him on the position.
No, you don't.
Yeah,
I do.
He will be on there. I'm already higher than that on him. Trust me. Yeah.
Anyways,
I like it. I like Ferkser. I like the offense. So.
All right, cool. All right, Chris. The next guy I want to call you out on is Trevor Lawrence. You have him at 23. I have him at 19, and I think I have him still pretty low. And you say I'm low on rookies, and you have the only rookie quarterback you have at 23.
Yeah.
What say you, sir?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess there's a lot of question marks. I think he was put on a positional at the bottom. I wasn't terribly concerned about ranking a rookie quarterback in the top 12, so I was kind of like, let's look at some other guys. Beyond that, I don't have the best answer. I'd have to take your angle, which would be contradictory to my other positions. He is a rookie. There's some unanswered questions there, but deep down, I believe he's going to be a stud. Year one, I like.
Here's what I have on him. And,
go ahead. Mm-hmm.
And this is what to make your point, and one of the reasons why he won't succeed in year one is that as of right now, PFF came out with their pre 2021 season offensive line ratings, and the Jags are 23rd best. Now, that's not very good. They didn't do a whole lot this offseason to address their offensive line. Instead, they took Travis Etienne, where I was kind of like, ooh, you could draft an offensive lineman right here. And then they took Etienne instead, which seemed a little odd, but I mean, whatever.
To that point, what's his face? Urban Meyer's scaring me a little bit, man. He kind of is. This stuff we're hearing. I mean, I know it's all BS in June, but go ahead. I'm just saying, he's just weird, man. College coaches don't usually have success. Maybe that's an old take. I don't know, but I still feel like they've been very.
I think that's an old take because a lot of these NFL coaches were college coaches at one point.
I meant jump straight from. Now, if anybody could do it, you would think it would be one of the most hallowed coaches of all time, right? But some of the stuff coming out of his mouth, some of the decisions, such as Etienne, just has me a little concerned. But no, he won't stay at 23 for me. I got to figure out what to do with Ben also, because they're right next to each other, and there's a lot of questions about Ben too. I feel like,
and this is why I want to put Trevor Lawrence even higher, is that he has a really, really stocked wide receiver core and for those people who don't know, with DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault, or Chenault, as some people are starting to call him. I guess that's the proper pronunciation.
I think he corrected somebody if memory serves, but go ahead.
Yeah. And they also have Marvin Jones too, who they signed in the offseason. They don't really have a tight end of note.
No.
Per se, but they do have two running backs that are very adept at catching out of the backfield as well.
Yep.
So I like, and I think those are the reasons why if he's going to succeed, it's because of those. He has a nice supporting cast around him. That offensive line is going to get him pummeled a little bit. But we've seen offensive. We have seen offensive lines make big leaps from year to year too.
Of course.
Like it's not unheard of. It's just, and PFF isn't the end all be all when it comes to like ranking stuff.
Right.
We just like to use them as a kind of a reference point more than anything else. Because I don't sit around and rate every single offensive line. I don't have time for that. So I let them do it, and I kind of go by what they say. And sometimes I agree with them, and sometimes I don't.
I think they're a good starting point. Is what they are.
Yep, exactly.
You may not have heard my joke. I said I like to use Madden ratings. joke. No, is that all you got?
Pretty much. I just like, and the other thing I have is like, I mean, you have Big Ben, Taysom Hill, and Jalen Hurts ahead of him, and he's just ahead of Daniel Jones. Like he's like.
Right.
Yeah,
I can almost guarantee what's going to happen.
Daniel Jones
is I'm going to end up. I was waiting till you're done to come back to this. Is I was going to say so probably. I still like Mayfield, and I still kind of like Carr. Okay, so I can bet you money that Ben will probably raise above. Probably Wentz.
Really.
And so will Trevor Lawrence. So they'll be in that 15-18 range.
Okay. Speaking of Wentz, you kind of wanted to say a little something about him. What
yeah, that's again why I came back to this, is because it happened to be right in that area, right about QB 18. Well, Josh is an Indy fan, but he has a very reasonably ranked at QB 15.
Yeah. You want to know why?
Why?
I don't know what to do with him, so I just stuck him at 15.
And that's kind of, and we talked about it off the air for a little bit.
I think he has potential of being a legit QB1. I don't like his weapons all that much. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love. Pittman being a young receiver, and same with Paris Campbell, who's like barely played at all in his NFL career. Mm-hmm. And I still think T.Y. Hilton has some left in the tank too. Like I feel like a lot of people who hate T.Y. Hilton didn't really watch him last season, which I didn't get a whole lot of chances to. But from what I heard, he still looked good. It was just him and Rivers were just not in sync with each other.
And you're talking about two veterans that have been playing with a different quarterback for quite a long time, Well, maybe not Rivers.
Yeah, and Rivers, you could tell Rivers' arm was not what it used to be. So I feel like T.Y. Hilton just didn't have the chance to stretch the field all that much.
Didn't have a chance to do what he does well.
Yeah, and Carson Wentz does have the ability to throw the ball downfield. We'll see how accurately, but and he's probably going to have a lot more time than he did in his previous season.
That was going to be my overall arcing theme, was just how bad Philly was last year. Offensive line ranking, just you could even play a ranking for Hurts, because that'll bring if
offensive
you think
line
they can turn around, or you think
bad receiving weapons. Like just I mean when
those
what was
receivers
that?
were
What was
so bad last year, man.
What was that? What was that one dude's name that just kind of popped out of nowhere? And the wide receiver for the Eagles.
Fulgham?
Travis Fulgham. Yep, Fulgham, yes. Real flash in the pan guy.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
and then the other in Wentz's favor is, he showed us he can play MVP caliber football for a good team. Not
he can
2 years ago, I think 2-3.
So
different coach, different regime. I get it, but
same coach actually.
And I don't want to be too biased in terms of Dallas, Philly, all this BS. I want to make sure I give him a fair shake, is why I wanted to bring him up tonight. So we'll see where he ends up. But right now, I think we're both on the same page. We kind of don't want to do all these question marks.
Wentz is definitely going to be a quarterback on the move on my list as well. With same with Lawrence, is that just for right now, without a whole lot of like team news coming out and not a lot of training camp and practice and everything going on with these NFL teams, he's going to stay at 15 for the moment.
And hey, Superflex.
He could go down, but he's probably going to go up.
Right, and Superflex, we'll be ready. We'll have our handle on Wentz and Lawrence and all of them. And it will matter for Superflex. If you've got to have a good top 24. But yeah, we'll see how it shakes out.
All right. I got a quarterback that I'm calling us both out on. I'm calling us both out on this quarterback.
Awesome,
okay.
Awesome.
You have this guy at quarterback 20. I am sorry, I did not write down where I had him, so let me look that up real quick. The guy that I'm talking about here
It's Jalen
is
Hurts. You
Jalen
got him
Hurts.
at 23.
I have him at 23, yeah.
Oh, okay, I got 20.
And here's why I wanted to bring him up.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really go actively seek out other people's fantasy analysts because I try and make my own analysis my own. I don't want to like accidentally
from other opinions, so it's not.
Yeah, I don't want to accidentally regurgitate someone else's work or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
That too. Yep.
So, but every once in a while, like that sort of stuff pops up in my news feed because I do research for these players for the show. And and I do fantasy points research all the time. So I read headlines, and Jalen Hurts has been popping up here and there about being a sleeper this year. So I was like, well, I wonder why that is. And I didn't read it. I didn't read any of these articles. I wanted to figure it out on my own, and I think it's because of the rushing.
Yeah,
and so listen to this. Here's what I looked into this afternoon. So here's what I've gleaned from this. He started the last 4 games of 2020 for the Eagles, right?
Sounds right.
In those games, he averaged 68 rushing yards, 3/4 of a rushing touchdown per game.
I was just going to say, yep, I remember that.
229 passing yards, 1.25 passing touchdowns per game, and a 3/4 of an interception per game. So that interception rate's a little high. But to put that all into context, because we're a fantasy show and we're talking about fantasy points here, that's roughly 25 fantasy points per game.
That's awesome. Yeah, but
that's great.
And you want it in the
that's pretty freaking great, right?
15th or 12th round or whatever this may be. Yeah, no,
here's my problem.
Go ahead.
Here's my problem. 2% accuracy while throwing the ball. Now,
what was that percent?
52. 52. That is 2% over 50%.
For those keeping track at home.
That's not good. And a lot of that was he had a really, really awful game in week 17 against the Washington football team. Excuse me, I didn't write down the stats for that. But the only thing that saved his fantasy points in that game was his 2 rushing touchdowns. Otherwise, he would have ended up with 3 fantasy points if he wouldn't have gotten those rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
So we're
scared about how bad Philly could be, man.
But Jalen Hurts he's a mobile quarterback. Part of his problem with Oklahoma and even Alabama was accuracy. It's just he struggled, efficiently passing the ball at times. And the only thing I think a lot of what saved him in Oklahoma was CeeDee Lamb. No, that is CeeDee Lamb, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they played.
Yeah.
Yep. His last year.
So I feel like your 20 and my 23 is definitely probably too low. If he's gonna get those rushing numbers, you're gonna get 68 rushing yards per game. That's a big difference right there. Mm-hmm.
And maybe he's one of those guys where you draft 2 quarterbacks. Me and you don't customarily do that, but sometimes when you draft one real late, or should I say when you draft 2 real late.
Here's the thing that I wanted to say about. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing I wanted to say about drafting quarterbacks too, is that you have to read the room when your league's drafting. If you're sitting there and you're waiting on quarterbacks and people are starting to take a second quarterback, it's time to draft a quarterback like almost immediately, because otherwise you're going to get left with garbage. And if you play in a league with 9 or 11 other guys or gals, and they're holding 2 quarterbacks at all times, that means you need to hold 2 quarterbacks too.
Yep, you'll see that sometimes in home
forcing
leagues,
your hand to do so.
Leagues. You'll see that more casual leagues. You always get it. You get your guys taking.
I've heard of some expert leagues do that too.
Yeah.
So, I've heard of expert leagues do that as well. So really? It's just dang. Yeah, it's just you have to read the room. If people are starting to take a second quarterback, it's time to start drafting a quarterback, even if it is only the 8th round.
I think after this conversation,
otherwise
go ahead. Otherwise, you're going to get this conversation that you can have. What am I saying? Superflex. He's got to be a QB2, right? He's got to be 24 and up, if not 20 or 16. You know what I mean? Like he's probably a good quarterback too in Superflex, right? Not necessarily.
Yeah, in a Superflex, he might start pushing top 10 there if he's gonna rush that.
I was thinking more like under, like 13 and under, but.
Okay.
Just because technically a QB2, but yeah, there's a world where he is a QB1, but I don't know with this Philly offense. But he runs around a ton, man.
I don't know either, but look at Lamar Jackson in 2019, or even last year. There was 1,000 yards there. Hurts wasn't gonna. Well, he was gonna maybe hit 1,000 yards
like
with
if you
that.
Extrapolated it over 16 games.
Well,
Is that what you're
17
saying?
this year.
Oh,
But
right.
yeah, that's all the quarterbacks. I just wanted to like kind of call us both out on that. I'm like, I think that
Yeah.
maybe we need to reevaluate that Jalen Hurts a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah, he's stinky, but
He's
I
not a
mean, if
good
he's going to
thrower.
run that much,
A
if he's
lot of
going
the
to
talk
run
is
that much, man, it's
a lot of talk has been this is their, you know, let's see what we have in Hurts season. Tear it all down. Tear it all down
if he
it doesn't
falls,
work.
he falls, and we end up with a super high draft pick. And if he succeeds,
Exactly.
then we've got lightning in a bottle.
Exactly.
And like a third round bottle, but still, whatever.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody else you want to talk about?
I think that was it for quarterbacks. I kind of lumped a couple in there, 2 or 3 into a couple of conversations, and I feel good about it. However, as we just addressed, I think we've got some adjusting to do, particularly in that area
For
of
sure.
quarterbacks. Mm-hmm.
Hey man, it's version 1.0 more or less,
Right, exactly.
And
go ahead. Go ahead.
I feel like we can readdress this again at the beginning. Like we can readdress this subject or kind of just touch on some changes we've made like in a month from now, and But guess what next week is, Chris? Guess what next week is?
This is good. This is going to be the meat.
That thing, that juicy thing that every fantasy football player loves, and that is running backs. Mm-hmm. Oh yes, the running backs.
I remember running into a little difficulty with quarterback, being like, we're so close on so many guys. I'm sure there'll be running backs we're close on, but I think it's important with running back to like debate a four rank.
Oh, we're gonna have some differences, that's for sure.
Yeah, but we've already. I would be more inclined to argue the order of the top, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 running backs, and be like, this is important because you don't want to miss, type of thing.
I don't know. I think like the top 4, if you look at my ranks, are just
we're similar.
It's kind of whatever you want to do. If you want to take one of these guys over the other one, fine. I'm not going to argue with anyone over that. Now, unless you're saying Derrick Henry, because then I'm like, don't do that, please.
Derrick Henry? Oh yeah, running back. Sorry.
Yeah.
I hear a car in my head. Sorry. Yeah, we've got some concerns.
So that's next week.
Yep, but that's next week's, folks.
Until next time, then. You can catch us in podcast format if you are watching us on YouTube, pretty much wherever podcasts are available. Trevor, your local podcast dealer that's behind the Try and Save or whatever, we do, even distribute our podcast to him. So we don't advise that you go with him, but if that's how you get your podcast, go for it. If you are listening in podcast format, we are available wherever YouTube is available. Even in the Ukrainian dark web as well. So. Once again, don't really ask that you go to the Ukrainian dark web, but if you have to, we are there on YouTube. I've done some player videos that you can check out on our YouTube channel, and yada yada yada. Until next time, have a goodbye, everybody.
Like, share, and subscribe. See you, everybody.
Yeah.